Hello, and welcome to Mastering Meal Prep. We are here today to talk about how to make your life just a little bit easier in the kitchen, because that's what we're all looking for is a little bit of ease, a little bit of stress reduction, getting out of the overwhelming question of what are we going to have for dinner. Meal prepping is such a great way to pre-think your meals, to look ahead to what your week is going to look like, how you can plan out the food for yourself, for your family, so that you're ensuring you're eating nutritious meals, delicious meals, and you're reducing the workload on the day of. So what we're going to do today is we're going to walk through the next 2 hours with 6 different recipes. We're going to make some morning glory muffins. We are going to dive into making our own shawarma spice blend and then using that spice blend in a slow cooker shawarma chicken recipe, a lentil and feta tabbouleh or tubula recipe. And then we're going to make some energy balls, cinnamon ginger energy balls, and finish with a nice little breakfast dish of overnight oats. So before we get started, I just want to show you a few of the things that I do to help me make my life in the kitchen a little bit easier. I have some things here that are a regular part of my meal prepping and meal planning. So to start with, I just have a simple bag of frozen corn, but this corn was local when we bought it in the summer, and we cooked it and then took all of the kernels off of the cob and flash froze them in the freezer. So I know that I have fresh local vegetables all winter long just by doing a little bit of work up front. Next, I want to show you something else that comes out of my freezer. Now, this might not look particularly attractive to you, but this is actually a pre-done smoothie. So what I do is I take all of the ingredients for the smoothie except for the wet ingredients. So if you're using a nut-based milk or water, you leave that out and put all of the other ingredients in the bag. And then what I do is I just label it, the kind of smoothie that it is, put it in the freezer. And so the next day, the next week, even a month later, I can grab that smoothie bag out of the freezer, put it into my high-speed blender, add the liquids to it, and voila, I have an instant smoothie that I didn't have to spend all kinds of time prepping that morning. Something else that comes out of my freezer are pre-made soups. So this is a larger version. This would be enough for a couple of meals or for my husband and I. You can also find containers that are a little bit smaller so that if you are living on your own or if you're making a soup or something that nobody else in your house prefers, you can make it in smaller sizes in a big batch and then container it out, put it in your freezer, and you'll have access to it whenever it is that you want. Now, I do have a container of vegetable broth here. So one of the things I do like to do, well, there's 2 things I like to do with broth. One is to pre-buy a whole bunch of these so that I always have broth on hand, because broth can be used in so many different recipes. But the other thing that I do is in my freezer, I keep a bag of what I like to call my vegetable odds and sods. So onion skins, garlic, any vegetables that are sort of on the end of their term and look like they need to be eaten, but you're not going to get them done. You can put them into the bag and freeze them. What else do I put in there? Any kind of spinach or kale that's sort of at the end of its term. You can even add pre-add seasonings if you wanted to, pre-add salt and pepper. But I just find having a large freezer bag handy where I can just throw in carrots and celery and onions and garlic, the things that you would put into a vegetable broth, is really handy. And then I can use my slow cooker and just put all of those vegetables into the slow cooker with water and a little bit more seasoning. Sometimes I'll add in like a chunk of chaga mushrooms, or I'll add in a few fresh things from the fridge, maybe some fresh herbs, just to enhance the flavor, and just let that slow cook overnight. And then you don't have to worry about it anymore. It's ready in the morning. You can strain out the vegetables, put it into mason jars, and freeze that in your freezer. Something else that I think is worth talking about is nuts and seeds. So all of my nuts and seeds get stored in my fridge, in glass jars on the top shelf of my fridge. So literally the entire top shelf of my fridge is sesame seeds, pumpkin seeds, pecans, walnuts, almonds, you name it, it is in there. I do this because I like to reach for nuts and seeds as part of my snack or to put on a salad. And I want to make sure that they're fresh. So sometimes when we have nuts and they stay in the pantry, they can actually go rancid. And so we want to make sure that we're storing them, keeping them nice and fresh. Some people have said in the past, well, I don't have room in my fridge, but that's okay. Just put them in your freezer. Find some space in your freezer. It works perfectly well also. And then I want to talk about this for a second. This is ground flaxseed. So flaxseed in itself is really good for you, but it's best in its ground version. If it's not ground, it kind of just goes through your system because your system can't break it down. So we want to grind our flaxseed and store it in the fridge. If you don't store it in the fridge, it can go rancid, and we don't want our food to go rancid. Now, if you're wondering how I grind my flax seeds, and I'm going to be talking about some other spices that I've pre-ground also, I just bought a little coffee grinder. It's just this little tiny coffee grinder, and all I have to do is put any nuts or seeds into there or any spices into there, and I can grind them up in small quantities and put them into jars and save them on my shelf. So this is a really handy item to have in your kitchen, not just for grinding your coffee, but also for helping you with your meal prep. All right, let's get these things out of the way and we'll get into our recipes. So there are so many things that you can do to help make your life just a little bit easier. Put these over here when you are doing meal prep. And one of them is making sure that you have all of your ingredients available to you. So you will have the recipes from this workshop, and you also have the grocery list, which is a really handy item to have if you're going to do everything at once. If you're not going to do it all at once, what I highly recommend is getting out your recipe and going through all of the ingredients, going into your pantry and your fridge and your freezer and checking off what you already have, and then making a grocery list of what you actually still need. Another strategy that you can use is doubling recipes. So this Morning Glory Muffins recipe makes 18 muffins. You might want to double it. Now you may have to rotate through your muffin tins a little bit, but what you're going to get is a whole bunch of muffins that you know are healthy, that you know are made from fresh ingredients. You put them in the bags, seal the bags, take all the air out of the bags with a straw, seal up the bags, and then label the bag what the type of muffin is and when you made it. And then you can just go in the night before, pull out a couple of muffins. So you may even want to put them in smaller bags, in like bags of 6. So you're not taking a whole bunch out at once. Take them out, let them thaw, and the next morning you can have nice fresh muffins that you know you made and you know have no extra additives or preservatives or food colorings in them. So on that note, let's make some muffins. All right, I am going to grab my bowl here. I've already preheated my oven. You might have heard it go off, so that is ready to go. And what I want to do is, before I start mixing ingredients, I want to talk about muffin tins. So here I have some non-stick muffin tins. Typically, I don't use non-stick cookware because what happens when the Teflon gets scratched is that it can leach those chemicals into your food. And I'm really mindful about chemicals in my kitchen. So you may be wondering, well, why do I have them? Because I use paper cups. Sometimes I use white paper cups, sometimes I use brown parchment paper cups, but I always line my muffin tins. So is Teflon easier to clean up? Absolutely. It is very easy to clean, especially when you have the liners in it. Another option that I like is these silicone muffin tins. Now they're a little bit bigger, so they have a little bit more volume in them. They're very flexible, very easy to wash, and what they don't require is pre-filling with oils and flours and things like that. You can literally just put the muffin mix into the muffin tin, and when they're done and cooled a little bit, you can just flip them over or pop them right out because they go upside down a little bit. So that's another nice option to have when you're thinking about the health and safety in your kitchen while you're doing your meal prep. All right. I'm going to get a different bowl out here. I don't want to use that one. I'm going to save that. I need a bigger bowl for dry ingredients and a smaller bowl for my wet ingredients. Put that back over here. And we're going to get cooking. Okay, I need 2 cups of almond flour. So you could make your own almond flour. And again, you could put it in the freezer and have it available to you, or you can source your almond flour at your local grocery store. This is a brand that I particularly like because I know that it's nice and clean and I trust it as a source for my cooking needs. So I need 2 cups of this almond flour. So I'm just going to dig in here and level that out. There's my 1. And there's my 2. So my 2 cups of almond flour. Let's put that over here. And then I need 2 cups of oats. So here's my 2 cups, or my oats for my 2 cups of oats. Again, they're the same brand that I used for the almond flour. So I'm going to grab my 2 cups of oats. And what we're doing is just putting all of the dry ingredients together in one bowl. There we go. Seal that up and put that off to the side. And then I'm going to add some cinnamon. So I have my cinnamon here. This is Ceylon cinnamon. So Ceylon cinnamon is a truer form of cinnamon. It's made from the bark from a tree, which makes it a much more nutrient dense and viable source of nutrient uptake than So what I have here is Ceylon cinnamon, and this cinnamon comes from a tree. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's actually the purest form of cinnamon, and I like to use it in my baking. So I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon to my dry mix. Here, just eyeball that. Put that in. And then I also need a 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt. So when you are baking, it's a little bit of a chemistry project. So you want to make sure that you're following the recipe, because baking powders, baking sodas, salt, all of these things, they are put in specific quantities and because they work together. So just be mindful of that when you are making substitutions. There's my salt. So for example, if you are not wanting to use a white sugar, which is a great choice to not use a white sugar, you can't just substitute it for a liquid sugar, because now you're putting more liquid into your recipe. So you need to find another dry sugar that would be a great substitute. So that's just a little piece of advice for you when you're working in your kitchen. And then I need my raisins. So I have 1 cup of pre-measured raisins here. Get them all out. And then I'm just going to grab a spatula and mix that all together, tossing everything in. Just blending up my dry ingredients so that they are nicely mixed. We don't want any lumps in there. It's a few lumps from the almond flour, so I'm just trying to get those lumps out so that everything mixes nicely. All right, so there's our dry ingredients. So with our wet ingredients, I want to be putting in my oil. It calls for a 1/3 cup of extra virgin olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil is a great choice because it's nice and clean. And we always want to buy it in a dark bottle. The dark bottle stops the light from getting in, and that helps to prevent the oil from going rancid. So glass bottles also, plastic bottles can leach into the food, and we don't want that. So I need 1/3 cup of oil. See that nice, beautiful color? Fun fact about olive oil is you don't want to be cooking it on a high heat. You want to be cooking your olive oil on a medium to low heat. Our high heat oils are coconut oil, avocado oil, and coconut, avocado, Oh, and sesame oil. Yeah, sesame oil is really nice because it'll have nice flavor in it when you're doing like a stir fry or something. Those can all be cooked on high, but when you cook an olive oil on high heat, it changes the chemical composition of the oil, and that can affect the flavor of it, but it also changes how your body responds to it because it literally changes the chemical composition. So just be mindful of that. We're going to add in a half a cup of maple syrup. So this is a nice local maple syrup. I try to buy as much local as I can. Supporting local is important, but also then you know who the farmer is and what you are getting. And it's always nice to be able to have the conversations with the farmer. Just get rid of that last little bit of oil there, so that you can ask them like how they make their products, or how they grow their products, and just know where your food is coming from and what it's going to be when it gets to your table. All right, 4 eggs. So these are some free range chicken eggs. My father-in-law has chickens, so we like to get our eggs from him. So just put those in, nice shells, nice yolks. It's just nice to know, I like to know that the food that I'm getting is as clean as possible. And again, like I said, as local as possible. So 1 more egg here. Put that in. And I'm gonna grab a piece of paper towel just to get rid of those yolks. And a whisk so that I can mix all of that together. Go. You can't cook and not have a bit of a mess in your kitchen, and that's okay. That's half the fun. What's even better is when you have helpers with you and they can clean up for you while you're going along cooking. All right, so those are mixed. And then I also want to add my almond milk. So this is not an almond milk, this is an oat milk. We'll have a conversation a little bit later on about how you can make your own milks. But this is when I discovered it's my favorite brand, not gonna lie, and it has 0 sugar in it. So I don't use dairy at all. I can't digest dairy because I am lactose intolerant, but I also prefer not to have dairy if I don't have to. So I'm going to use my half a cup of unsweetened oat milk. Set that aside for another recipe. Give that a little whisk. Mix that in. And then we're going to add the carrot and the bananas. So the carrots are pre-grated. I just used a hand grater, but to save time, you could use a food processor and that would make it go much faster. So I'm just going to add my fresh local carrots in here. Get these from a local farmer. Just get them into the mix. And then I need to have 2 bananas. So I'm going to add my bananas. It's fun, breaking them in half. And put that in. And this in. And use a fork just to gently mash them in. Sure that they're all squishy in there. You could do this in a separate bowl ahead of time if you wanted to. I'm just putting them right into the mix. I might end up with a few banana lumps in my muffins, but that's okay. They're still going to be mostly mashed. They're going to have beautiful flavor, and they are acting with the maple syrup as a source of sugar. So you'll notice that we're not using any white sugars or any brown sugars. So far, we've just used natural sugars. I highly encourage that. And so that's something too that you can go ahead and buy in bulk at a bulk food store. You could buy coconut palm sugar or cane sugar. People ask me about stevia. You could use stevia instead. So there's banana number 1. Let's do banana number 2. Put this in. So really, this doesn't take that long to make the muffins. And what I'm going to end up with is a whole bunch of muffins that I can, like I said, freeze and have access to whenever I want them. And nice, healthy muffins make a nice gift for other people too. So if you have extra muffins in your freezer, you can pull them out and take them to a friend if they need a little bit of a snack, a little treat, a little pick-me-up. This guy. So I could have used bananas that were a little bit riper, but you know what? This is what I landed with at the grocery store, and it's working out just fine. A little riper would have been a little bit softer to mash, that's all. All right, put that over there. And next is to just do our combining of our ingredients. So I bring this over and in, scrape my bowl. Get everything out of there. That out of the way, and then mix everything together. So like I said, my oven is already ready to go. All I have to do is serve up my muffins into the muffin tins. So I want to really make sure I'm getting into the bottom of the bowl, getting all those dry ingredients turned over so that we don't end up with any dry spots, any lumpy spots. Beautiful. And I love the raisins in there. Now on the recipe, it says that if you didn't want to use raisins, you could try dried blueberries or fresh blueberries, unsweetened cranberries, just something to, again, add a little touch of sweetness to it. All right, so I'm going to grab my muffin tins. And I know that I'm going to need those red muffin tins back there also, because this is a nice big batch of muffins. So I'm just going to use a ladle just to scoop them in. And you can always go back and top up your muffins, right? You can always add a little bit more batter if you need to. Put those in there. Big chunks of banana in there. It'll be good. Over here. All right, so just as I'm doing this, just to tell you a few nutritional facts about our muffins, in case you need a reason to eat them, if you want to know that they're really nice and healthy. You'll remember when I started putting them together that I was using almond flour instead of a white flour. White flour has minimal nutritional value to it. When things are white pasta, white flour, white rice, they've had the good stuff taken out of them. They become a processed food, a highly processed food. So it's nice to be able to use an ingredient that we know still has nutrients in it. And almonds are rich in vitamin E and other antioxidants. Now, antioxidants, you may have heard that term before in other cooking classes or maybe in articles that you've read around food. So let's talk about what antioxidants are for a second so that you understand, because they're going to come up quite a bit in this workshop. Antioxidants are compounds that prevent stress and damage to your body. So when we breathe in scented candles that aren't made with essential oils, they're made with chemicals, off-gassing your furniture, those little scent things that you put in your car, perfumes, anything that's chemical, when we breathe it in, it goes into our body and it kind of floats around in our body. And what it can do is cause oxidative stress on our cells and then subsequently damage to our DNA, which we don't want. So we want to be eating foods that have antioxidants in them that are going to help to find what we call free radicals. So these smells and things that we bring into our body create these free radicals that are floating around, because the atoms in our body all want to pair up with another atom. But these free radicals are like all over the place and they're interrupting that pairing of the atoms. And then they can get into where the atom is supposed to go. And then the atoms are left floating around. So we want to make sure that we are bringing foods into our diet that are going to stop those free radicals from floating around and subsequently causing oxidative stress to our cells and potentially leading to diseases like heart disease, cancer, and various other inflammatory diseases. So it's really important when you are getting food that you are aware of not just, what not to eat, but what to eat. And so foods that are high in antioxidants are a great choice. And one of them is almonds. Raisins are our friend. Raisins are a great source of soluble fiber. We want to have fiber in our diet because it helps us to go to the bathroom. It helps support our digestive system, and it helps to regulate blood sugar, and it helps us with staying full and staying less hungry. So raisins can be a contributing factor in that. And also, as I mentioned, they can be a bit of a sweetener also. They make a nice snack, but I do want to share with you that when you eat dried fruit, they are higher in sugar than their regular natural form. And so it's important just to be mindful of that. But the raisins research shows that there's a protein in raisins called tartaric acid. And what it does is it helps to improve intestinal function. It has anti-inflammatory properties, which you're going to hear me say a lot over the course of this workshop. And it can help to balance your gut bacteria, which is really important because when we eat a lot of processed foods, which we're inclined to do in our society, our gut bacteria gets out of order. And we want to bring foods in that are going to help to settle our gut bacteria. All right, let's get these in the oven. Pop these in here. Nice and toasty in that oven. Silicone ones down here in the bottom. Set my timer for 30 minutes. And we're good to go. All right, so that was our morning glory muffins. So what else can I tell you about them? They had 4 eggs in them, and eggs contain vitamins and minerals, including vitamin A, vitamin E, and selenium that all act as antioxidants. They help support eye health and retina function, and they can help counteract degenerative vision as you age. Now, there was this whole movement at one point of not eating egg yolks, only eating egg whites. If you're separating eggs, here's a fun meal prep fact for you. You can take the yolks and freeze them in your freezer and then pull them out later and thaw them and use them in a recipe or use them as a scrambled egg. But egg whites they're not the nutritious part of the egg. The nutrients are actually in the yolk. And there's a lot of studies that are showing this whole thing around we shouldn't eat the yolks is a myth. We want to eat the yolks because we want those nutrients. And now that you know it's supportive of your eye health, that's another good reason for you to eat some eggs. We also have our carrots, which we used 4 carrots in our recipe. They are good for vision, for balancing your blood sugar, which is that when you eat food, you create glucose in your body and your pancreas pumps out insulin to help regulate that glucose so that your blood sugar stays regulated. It helps to send that glucose to your liver and to your muscles to be processed and ready for you to be able to run away if you have to. That's one of our natural instincts as humans, that fight or flight response. So carrots can help with regulating your blood sugar, with helping to lower risks of certain cancers, regulating blood pressure, and improving your immunity because they're high in vitamin C and they're good for your brain. And who doesn't want to be smarter and have better brain function? And then the last thing in that recipe I wanted to talk about is the bananas, which are high in potassium, and potassium is great for your heart. So there's a lot of reasons to eat these muffins and enjoy them. One of which is that they're just really delicious. All right, I'm gonna put that over there, that out of your way. And we're going to move on to our shawarma spice blend. So I already have my spice blend mix, but I want to talk to you about the ingredients that are in the spice blend. So first I'm going to show it to you. This is it here. It's a beautiful color. You can see that, nice and orange, and it smells absolutely delicious. So why does it smell delicious? Well, let's talk about what's in it. So what is in this is turmeric, and turmeric is a very, very yellow. I thought I had it with me. There it is. Turmeric is a very yellow orange spice. It will stain everything you own. It will make your white shirts yellow. It won't come out. It will stain your countertop. So be really careful when you're using turmeric, but it is a great ingredient when you're creating a spice blend. Turmeric is has a component in it called curcumin. And curcumin is the active ingredient that they have been studying in research that can help to support anti-cancer processes. Now, to activate that curcumin, you want to be having black pepper mixed in with turmeric. So that's just a fun fact for you. But turmeric is highly anti-inflammatory, so it is a key ingredient in this spice. Also in this spice is ground cumin. So I am buying organic spices because I know that I don't use them a lot. I don't use them super often. Some ingredients don't get used all of the time, but I want to make sure that I have the best quality ones possible and that they don't have extra added ingredients in them, which is why we're making our own spice blend, because we can control what goes into the spice blend. So this is ground curcumin. We also have paprika, and I've left it in this bag because I wanted to show you that it is possible to buy spices in small quantities. If you just go to your local bulk food store, you can literally buy the quantity that you need. Now, what I would do with this after the fact is I would transfer it into like a little plastic container or some sort of a spice jar that I own to make sure that it's not sitting in plastic, but I wanted to share that with you. And this is regular paprika. You can get spicy paprika, you can get Hungarian paprika. This is just regular standard paprika. And then we have something called ground sumac. And ground sumac is interesting. It has a whole bunch of potent antioxidant activity going on in it. So if you're thinking, isn't sumac a tree? You're right, sumac is a tree. Just need a little drink here. And it's edible. So you can get ground sumac. It smells amazing. And add that to certain recipes. It works to, like I said, protect your cells from damage and reduce oxidative stress. So super good for you. We have oregano. And again, I've left it in the bag because I wanted you to see that you can buy spices in bulk like this, or you can even buy them in really big containers. And I know that at some of the bigger stores that carry things in bulk, it seems very convincing to buy something in a large package, but dried spices have a shelf life. So you want to be thinking about saving money, but at the same time, you're not saving money if you buy a really big, like 1 liter thing of dried parsley and you don't end up using it. When you open the bag, if you can't smell it, it's not fresh anymore. So we try, as much as it may seem more expensive to buy things in small quantities, they may actually get better use in your kitchen, and you can store them easier, and they are just going to get used up faster and not expire on you and then have you end up throwing them out anyway. What else do we have? We have some cardamom. So I would bring out my spice grinder for you and show you this, but I've already done it. Cardamom comes in these pods, these little seed pods, like that. And so what I did to make this blend is I didn't shell them. You can take the shells off of them. I just put the whole shell in and put them in my spice grinder and just ground them up. So I got my 1 teaspoon of fresh cardamom, which smells amazing, by the way, and added it into my spice mix. The other thing is fennel seed. And fennel, if you know it, it smells like licorice. Again, I bought it at a bulk store in a small quantity. I put it into my grinder and ground it up, and it landed into my spice mix. And fenugreek. So fenugreek is used in Mediterranean cooking, but it seems to be a little difficult to find. So in real time in the stars, like what can I use instead of fenugreek? You can use mustard seed. So I happen to have some mustard seed on hand in my house. And rather than trying to figure out how to find this ground mustard seed, I already have whole seeds, put them in my grinder, ground it all up, and they landed again in my spice. So mustard seeds are good for you because they're good for your bones. They've got this mineral in them called selenium that helps to make your bones stronger, and they can help to strengthen your nails and your hair and your teeth. So selenium is quite good for you. Mustard seeds are an antioxidant and anti-inflammatory, and they can help actually relieve pain in your gums and your bones and your teeth. Now, ground mustard seed is not something you're going to eat a lot of, but you can always start doing your research and finding selenium in other sources. The cardamom that I mentioned, those seed pods, is also anti-inflammatory and an antioxidant. And fenugreek, if you did get your hands on it, helps to slow sugar absorption in the stomach and stimulate insulin. And that's going to help to lower blood sugar in people who have diabetes, or just for you in general to keep your blood sugar under control. So spices have a lot of power to them and a lot of really good reasons to eat them. And that's why I encourage you to buy a variety of spices and then make your own spice blends, because now I'm, dipping into the things that I already have, but I can still use them in other recipes. And I know that this spice mix is nice and clean. The next thing that I have is nutmeg, ground nutmeg, which is an antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and antibacterial, and ground cloves, which has manganese in it that helps you to manage your bones and your hormones. So all of these things, and the cinnamon, which I already talked about, are in this amazing little spice mix. I just put it in a container. If you have a jar, you can put it in a jar. Just make sure, because it's got the turmeric in it, that you seal it up nice and tight so it doesn't end up all over your kitchen or all over your drawer. So what are we going to do with that? We're going to make some chicken. So let's take that shawarma spice blend and add it to our slow cooker shawarma chicken. So just do a little bit of rearranging here, put some things out of the way. That spice grinder up there. And I'm going to grab the insert for my slow cooker. And I have a little bit of prep to do. It's back here for now to get ready. So we're going to start with lemons. So this recipe calls for 2 lemons to be juiced. So I wanted to show you how easy it is to juice your own lemons instead of buying those plastic lemons at the grocery store. You can buy lemons, like sometimes they're 3 for 99 cents, depending on the season, but buy your lemons, give them a wash, make sure that you have taken the stickers off of them. And all you have to do is cut them in half. So start here, cut that in half. I have this very small, easy to use handheld juicer that I got at like a kitchen store. You can get them at a dollar store. And I'm just going to tuck that into there and literally just twist it. Squeeze the juice out of it. This catches the seeds, it catches the pulp. And then I can just throw the rest. Now, what I could do with those half lemon rinds, I could put them in my vegetable bag in the freezer for making my vegetable broth. That would be a nice idea. That, and another lemon. If you want to get more juice out of your lemon, another thing that you can do is roll it back and forth like this, and that just breaks up the pulp on the inside a little bit and allows the juice to flow a little better. So, and the lemon acts as an acid in your recipe. So it helps act a little bit like a marinade also. And the acid kind of helps to, I'm not going to say it's going to pre-cook your chicken, but it helps to start activating that cooking process in some foods like ceviche, if you've ever heard of it. It's a seafood salad, a raw seafood salad. It will literally cook the seafood. Fun fact. All right, so I want to put my lemon juice in the bottom of my slow cooker. So I have 2 nice fresh lemons, nicely squeezed. Other things you can do with your lemon juice, put them into small mason jars like this. Put it in your fridge, and then you have lemon juice squeezed and ready to go for making salad dressings or for adding to lemon water or for adding to tea. I need a 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. So back over here to the olive oil. We'll put a 1/4 cup in with our lemon juice. So actually, I'm kind of making a salad dressing because you want to have an oil and an acid, the lemon juice, and then you can add salt and pepper, and that in itself is a salad dressing. Or you could add balsamic vinegar, you could add grainy mustard, you can add fresh herbs. So just a fun little extra meal prep thing thrown in here. Make a salad dressing at the beginning of the week. 1 jar. Find the ratios for your oil and I think it's 2/3 oil and 1/3 acid. Throw in the other ingredients, shake it up, put it in your fridge, and you have fresh homemade salad dressing. You'll never buy salad dressing again, and you'll save a ton of money and no additives, no preservatives, no chemicals, just nice natural whole foods. All right, 6 cloves of garlic. So I am cutting my garlic back to 4, just because the garlic cloves that I have are super big. Rid of the rest of that oil. And beautiful. Like, look at how those are amazing garlic cloves. So I know that I don't need to have a whole bunch of garlic. What I need to have instead is some nice, fresh pressed garlic. So I'm going to get out my garlic press, add my insert, and I'm going to have to cut these because they're so big. Cut these. So I've already pre-skinned 3 of them, and I'm going to show you what to do with the 4th one in a second. So I want to add my garlic, squeeze that right over the container, put that in there. And again, this little bit that's left over, you could add this, that little skin part, add that to your bag to put in the freezer to make your own vegetable broth. So it's going to get nice and ripe in my kitchen because it's going to smell a lot like garlic. So just get this done. Garlic is a prebiotic, so it's super good for your gut health. We want to have probiotics and prebiotics in our diet, and onions and garlic are prebiotics. Super good for helping, like I mentioned, with that balance of your microbiome in your gut. Your immune system is built in your gut. And so when you have a healthy gut, you're helping to support your immune system, which is really important, and to prevent overgrowth of the bad bacteria, the stuff that we don't want growing in our belly, like candida, that can overtake your system. Lots of things that we can control when we know about them, but it's the education around it that's not necessarily, has not necessarily been part of your life, but now it is. And once you know something, you can't unknow it. You cannot unknow that garlic is good for your gut. It's just a fact. 1 more of these pre-dones, and then I'll show you how to peel that 4th garlic clove. There's so much garlic in here. My husband's going to be super happy. He loves garlic. Now, some people can't digest garlic because it's a high FODMAP food, meaning that it ferments in your belly. So an interesting thing about that, though, is if you know that garlic doesn't work well for you, you can still use garlic oil and you can still use garlic powder. So garlic and I don't always get along. But what I do like to do is use a garlic powder in recipes in lieu of, so that I can actually enjoy the recipe. All right, we're going to open up this garlic rather than fighting with it. We're going to take the side of the blade, base of the palm, give it a smack, and broke up the garlic clove a little bit, but that's okay. That helps me to get, show you, that peel just came off almost all in one. Just way, way, way easier. Trim off the end. Again, I can put these garlic skins into that vegetable bag in the freezer for when I want to make broth. Just my hands, garlic gets a little bit sticky. Give that a press. Tuck that little guy in there. And there we have it. 4 huge cloves of garlic that's going to support this amazing, delicious, delicious, delicious recipe. This is a favorite at our house because of the all of the spices that we use when we're making our own spice mix. All right, so there's my garlic, one and done. Clean that up. Smells amazing. Let's put that here with the rest of the dirty dishes. All righty. What else do we need in there? We've got our juice, olive oil, garlic. We need some salt and pepper. So 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt. Just sprinkle that in there. It's my little salt bowl. That makes it nice and handy on the counter. And my pepper, I'm just going to eyeball it just to add in a bunch of pepper. It calls for a teaspoon. You can't go wrong with pepper. And again, pepper, if you're using turmeric, is really good for activating that curcumin in the turmeric. So the recipe that is in the meal prep program that you are watching right now calls for other ingredients, but I wanted to use this spice. So I'm going to use a good 2 tablespoons of the spice rather than the cumin and the cayenne. So 2 nice big tablespoons, a little overflowing because you can never have enough flavor, enough goodness. Up there so it doesn't spill. And then I'm just going to take my chicken thighs. I do recommend the chicken thighs because when we're using the slow cooker, breasts tend to dry out a little bit. So I'm just going to place the chicken thighs in here. I'm going to toss everything around. Suppose if you wanted to, you could pre-marinate these. You could make what's in the bottom of the cooker ahead of time, put them into a container and shake it all up, but you really don't have to. If you have everything on hand, you can just put it all into your slow cooker. And I'm going to just give that a toss. Just mix it all up. Make sure that the chicken thighs are nice and covered. So the thing about chicken thighs is they don't dry out like a chicken breast does. And they are in a smaller bite-sized quantity. So, you could have a couple of these thighs per person. You could easily double or triple this recipe and go ahead and put it in containers in your freezer, baggies in your freezer. Again, label them so you know what you're eating. You can put the date on the bag so you know when you made it, just to keep an eye out for freshness. But the chicken thighs are now, I'm just making sure, because you know how chicken thighs fold over on themselves, I'm opening them up a little bit just to get on the inside of them because I want them to be completely immersed in this goodness. There we go. There they are. And there's my chicken thighs ready to go in the slow cooker. So I'm going to cook that up. Now, when I cooked this before, I did it on high. Recipe says on high for about 3 hours. Select high. I would say that they were done in about 2.5. It took about 2.5 hours for them to get done. Just going to that. Yeah. There we go. All right. So what is good about this slow cooker chicken shawarma? Well, I already talked about the garlic, and the garlic is also super good for your immune system, like I said, because it helps to generate your immune system in your gut. And there's a study that included 41,000 women between the ages of 55 and 69 who routinely ate garlic as part of their diet and fruits and vegetables. And it had a 35% lower risk of colon cancer. So part of that is because I think because of the amount of fiber that would be in the garlic and the fruits and the vegetables, we need to have a lot of fiber in our diet to keep our bowels moving. It wouldn't be a workshop with me if we didn't talk a little bit about poop. And we also want to be drinking lots and lots of water to help our body absorb the nutrients and to move along the leftovers from the food after it's digested and the nutrients have been absorbed and get it out of our body. So it's always good to drink a ton of water. Sea salt. Now, compared to table salt, sea salt is less processed and it has more trace nutrients in it. It's a little bit chunkier, a little bit bigger in size. But on the whole, it's not really nutritionally a whole lot different. And there's all kinds of different salts that you can use out there. It wouldn't hurt your recipe if you used table salt. I just like to use a sea salt just because it's just a little bit cleaner. The pepper I already mentioned about the with the turmeric, but it also can stimulate the hydrochloric acid in your stomach, which helps with digestion and allows you your system to absorb the food that you eat. And it can also help to reduce discomfort and gas buildup in your intestines. So that's a good thing about it because it has carminative properties in it, which help to move things along and break things up. The rest of the recipe is available to you if you don't want to use that spice blend. So I'll just give you a little bit of an idea of the other ingredients. Cumin is an antioxidant. Cayenne pepper can help to increase the production of digestive fluid and enzymes to break your food up to allow for digestion to go better. The chicken is a source of protein. The cleaner your chicken, the cleaner your protein. It called for a red onion. I didn't put the red onion in either, but red onions are an antioxidant. And there's a study that shows that quercetin in onions is protective in several ways and shows that quercetin helps to fight inflammation. So it's an anti-inflammatory and it's an immune system booster. So red onion is good for you unless your poor belly doesn't want to digest it. Okay, just one more piece about the spice blend mix. Like even when I'm just smelling that spice blend mix, I am activating my digestive system. So as soon as you smell food, it starts to kick in the salivary glands. You start to salivate and start to swallow more. And then it creates that chain reaction of getting your digestive system going. So when you're cooking, take a pause to actually enjoy the process, smell the food, get the digestive system moving. But also when you're chopping vegetables, when you're preparing things, when you lovingly have your hands in your food, you are creating energy around the food. You are bringing in positive energy when you are calm and when you are infusing your food with love, like you can picture your family eating it and enjoying it. And that's a really beautiful gift to bring to yourself, to have this calm in cooking rather than feeling like, I don't know how to do this, or this is work, or I don't like this. Maybe start to tell yourself that cooking is good. Cooking is healthy for my family. Using healthy ingredients is good for me. I like cooking. Like talk yourself out of not liking cooking. And again, when you bring in like tools and strategies like this meal prep, it just makes the process a little bit easier, a little bit nicer, and it allows you to infuse your food and your meals with a little bit of love. Okay, we are going to make a salad to go along with that shawarma chicken. Now, what I'm doing for the purpose of this workshop today is I'm actually cutting the recipe in half because it makes quite a bit. And I don't want to have a whole lot of leftovers because there's just two of us in our house, and I don't want food to go to waste in my fridge. So I have taken the recipe and just modified it a little bit, starting with the lentils. So the first modification that I'm making is I'm using canned lentils. Now, when you're buying canned foods, make sure that it is BPA free. I don't buy too many canned foods, but sometimes, and this is a meal prep workshop, sometimes you just need it to be a little bit easier. And so buying food from a can that can be used quickly and not sit around and wait to be used will allow a little bit of ease in your life. Now, if you are using lentils, first of all, the canned lentils, you want to rinse them, get all of the residue off of them. But if you're using fresh lentils, you're going to want to soak them for a good 24 to 48 hours. What that does is it helps to break down the outer coating on them and start to activate them. So to actually kind of get the nutrients flowing in them. If you were to keep going and put them in the sunlight, they would actually sprout and create little beans of their own. So you always want to, if you're using dried lentils, soak them and then rinse them off again to get any residue off of them. So this is, the recipe itself calls for 2 cups of lentils. I am just using half a cup of, or 1 cup of lentils, and they are essentially pre-cooked because they're coming out of the can. So we're just going to scrape those into my bowl. Don't be afraid to play with your recipes too. Like, don't be afraid to double them or half them. Just be aware of how much food you're making and how quickly you're going to eat it. And if it's a recipe like this, where this won't last in the fridge for more than a couple of days, then you don't want to be making it in a really large quantity. So there's my lentils, and then the recipe calls for 2 tomatoes. So I'm just going to add 1 tomato. I'm just going to use a Roma tomato here. Get a clean knife, cut the end off of it. It's always good to have nice sharp knives in your kitchen. That's very, very helpful. And so you can see I'm putting it down on its flat side, and I'm just going to cut it down the middle, and then again put it on the flat side. Well, there's our muffins, and just cut it into squares. Now I'm putting it on the flat side because I don't want it to move. I don't want it to slip when I'm cutting it and accidentally cut myself. So I have to get to those muffins. Just finish this little bit of tomato, and then I'm going to get to those muffins because I don't want them to overbake. Right, let's leave that for a second. Hands a wipe here. Get out my handy dandy cake tester or muffin tester, if you can see that. Let's get these muffins out of the oven. They look and smell amazing. I wish you could smell them. Look at that. Give them a little test, a little poke. Yep, coming out clean. So I know that they're done. So I'm going to take those out. And then the silicone ones are a little bit trickier to get out because it wants to flop around. So we're going to double mitt this. Get them out of here. Got to be careful because they'll slide right out. So you can see. And I'm just going to let them cool up here for a few minutes before I try to pop them out and shut off my oven. And just leave that. Oh yeah. They just need to cool a little bit, get a little bit hard. That. And these are super handy to have in your kitchen, corks for you to be able to put things on to cool, because I want those muffins off of my stovetop. All right. So the muffins are done. The spice mix is done. The chicken is cooking in the spice mix, and we're making a salad. So let's finish up with this tomato, getting that sliced or chopped, I should say. We want it in nice big chunks. My knives need a little bit of sharpening. They're well loved, well used. That up. You could even use cherry tomatoes and cut them in half if you wanted to. And then you have cherry tomatoes available for other recipes also. So you can think ahead. Other things. Okay, so there's my tomatoes. And I'm going to use some feta. So this is a dairy feta. In the past, I've made this recipe with sheep feta instead. Now, sheep and goat milk is much more bioavailable to people who have a lactose intolerance. It digests differently in your stomach. So it's always a good option. I love lots of feta. I love feta on everything. I like how salty it is. It's just kind of yummy, especially with cucumbers and tomatoes. So that's my feta. And keeping it in the brine just to keep it nice and fresh. That up there. And then this recipe calls for 4 cups of parsley. So I have parsley, I've pre-washed it and let it dry. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually just cut off a chunk of it. You don't always have to measure everything exactly. You get to play a little bit. So I'm taking that, that's going to be about 2 cups of parsley, and I'm just going to chop it up, including the stems. The stems are perfectly good for you. Nothing wrong with the stems. You can save some for garnish if you want to. I'm going to mix that in here in a minute. That smells so good. Cloth. And then I need a little bit of red onion. So again, my body doesn't really love onions, but it does add a nice little flavor. So I don't care that my knife is already dirty because the food's going in the same place. So I'm just going to cut off around that core of the onion. This calls for half of an onion. So I am going to just leave some of that out and just chop up the rest. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not a competition. There's no medals. Just cut it up in whatever shapes and forms it takes. Or you can slice it and make it beautiful if you want to. It's entirely up to you. You can make the chunks as small as you want or as big as you want. I'm going to leave those a little bit chunky because then I can eat around them. Put that in my bowl. That. There we go. And some extra virgin olive oil. It's very popular. It's good to have extra virgin olive oil in your kitchen. So my 1/4 cup of oil is going to turn into half of a 1/4 cup, so 1/8 of a cup of the oil. And my half lemon, so I have another lemon here. See how I can roll it, and that's going to break up the pulp a little bit, and it's going to allow you to have better access to the lemon juice. So give my knife a wipe. I'm going to, I'm just going to cut like the top 1/3 off of my lemon because I'm having the recipe. My juicer. We just want to have a little bit of acid. So we've added that olive oil, and now we're adding this lemon juice, and we're going to add a little bit of seasoning. And what that's going to do is it's going to create, my lemon juicer is full. It's going to create a salad dressing. So basically we're making our own salad dressing again, which is so good. So I'm going to mix that in. Throwing food around. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Lots of color, lots of flavor. And so now what I'm going to do is add some cinnamon. Now you might think that's a little bit weird, but Mediterranean cooking has a lot of cinnamon in it. And as I've talked to cinnamon a bit before, it's really good for you. It's really good for regulating your blood sugar. So this calls for 2 teaspoons. So we just want our 1 teaspoon measure. Sprinkle that on there. Trust me, it's so good. It's a little bit unexpected when you bite into it, but then it's like absolutely delicious. And then I'm just going to eyeball the salt and pepper. So I'm just going to sprinkle some salt on there, that nice big sea salt that I was talking about, and grab my pepper grinder some fresh ground pepper on there, and then give it a mix. So when my chicken shawarma back there is done cooking, I will also have a salad to go with it. So let's come back to the chicken shawarma for a second. Different ways that you can eat it. You can put it on a grain. So you could put it on quinoa or on rice if you want to. You can serve it on its own with as a salad, like with some greens. The recipe actually has you build a salad around it. You can make it into a meal prep by making extra and putting it into the freezer and then pulling it out as you need to. You can make it into meal prep bowls. So what I could do is take that shawarma chicken and take this salad and put it all into a container, maybe with a little bit of hummus and pita in the middle. And then I have a pre-done salad type lunch. You could chop that chicken up and put it on top of a salad. You could take that chicken again, slice it or chop it and make a layered salad in a mason jar. So we always put like the heavy stuff at the bottom. So if you had rice, you'd put the rice at the bottom and the chicken, and then add the more delicate things. The more delicate it is, the closer to the top that it goes. So there is my salad that's going to go with my shawarma chicken for my dinner. So we'll put this over here and leave it. And as that shawarma, or as that salad marinates on itself, the flavor just gets better. Like it's actually better the second day because the flavors have had time to blend. Just get my workspace a little tidy here. All righty. Lots going on. Lots and lots of things happening here in this kitchen. So that is our lentil and feta tabbouleh or tubular salad. So I mentioned about the lentils that you're going to want to pre-soak them if you're using dried lentils. That helps to prevent gas, which nobody wants to have. If you're new to lentils, you might want to introduce them slowly into your diet because they can be a little disruptive to your digestive system. They are a plant-based protein. So if you are eating vegan, there's nothing wrong with eating vegan, but what's concerning about people who eat vegan is when they're not informed. So if you are not eating meat, you need to get your protein from somewhere. Protein builds our muscles and helps with our cells. And so we need to have protein in our body. Lentils are a source of protein, a plant-based protein. So that's why people who are vegan may eat a lot of lentils. They're high in fiber, good for your digestive system, good for your blood sugar regulation. They're high in iron, which is also good if you're not eating meat. The heme iron in meat is what we see and think of when we talk about iron. But the plant-based iron is a little bit different, but it's still a good source of iron for you. And we need iron in our blood system, in our bodies. Good for heart health and good for digestion. Tomatoes are rich in antioxidants, our friend that helps with all the free radicals. And one in particular called lycopene, which has been studied and shown to have some anti-cancer properties. So helpful to prevent cancer, helpful in terms of heart disease. And that's the thing that makes them red. It's the thing that gives them their color. Just a little fun fact there. Feta cheese tends to have more calcium in it than other types of cheeses. And so calcium is good for your bones, good for your teeth, good for your fingernails, all of these things. If you have been in treatment, someone who has gone through chemotherapy or who is on drugs that may impact your bones, this is something good to know, these bone building components in our nutrients, because sometimes, for example, chemotherapy can leach from calcium from your bones, which can lead to osteoporosis. So you want to be replacing calcium through foods as much as possible. And feta cheese is one of those. It also contains high levels of phosphorus, and that has, again, helps with bone density. So as we get older also, whether we've had an illness or not, our bones tend to start to lose density. And so we want to be eating foods that are going to support that. Parsley has vitamin K in it, which is helpful with blood clotting, which is very important. When we cut ourselves, we need that scab to happen, and that is the blood clotting that comes from vitamin K. And lemons, vitamin C, high in vitamin C, super good for your immune system. And I highly recommend lemons in your morning water or in your tea, and even a little sprinkle of cinnamon on there as well. Okay, so we have made all of our sort of savory foods. So we're going to move into a couple of sweet dishes. The first one that we're going to make is going to involve a little bit of noise. So I'm going to be using my food processor. Let's grab it here, bring it forward, because we're going to make some cinnamon ginger energy balls. Now, I have to tell you, I did an event once where I was asked to prepare snacks to a crowd of like 300 people. And so I made these cinnamon ginger, I made 300 of these cinnamon ginger energy balls, and not everybody took one. So I had leftovers. I had like a lot of leftover energy balls. And rather than worrying about it, I brought them home, put them in containers, put some parchment paper in between them so they didn't stick together, and froze them. And so anytime we wanted a healthy snack, we had this like backup plan of all of these energy balls in our freezer that we were able to bring out and thaw, keep them in the fridge so they don't get too sticky, and enjoy them. So I wanted to show you how to make them because they actually are really, really easy to make. They're super nutritious for you. If you don't have nut issues at your house, like nut allergies, they are great for kids because they can just grab them and go. There are lots of other energy ball recipes out there that you can use that don't have nuts in them. So this is just one option for you. So as I said, we're going to make a little bit of noise here. I'm just going to get my food processor out, and I need 3/4 of a cup of pitted dates, keyword pitted, because if they're not pitted, if you have the pit in them, you're going to wreck your tools and you can't eat them that way. So these have had the pits taken out of them. So what these are two things. They are my sweetener, but they are also my binding agent. So they're going to help my balls, my energy balls, to stick together. It's true. Almonds, raw almonds. Almonds are so good for you. We talked about them. So everything's just going in here. I have a 1/4 cup of raw cashews. Throw them in here. We'll talk about the health properties of these in a minute. Back into my cinnamon. I need a 1/2 teaspoon of my cinnamon. Just looking for my measuring tools here. Here's my 1/2 teaspoon. Sprinkle that around. You can never have too much cinnamon. And then my 1/4 teaspoon of ginger. Here's my ginger. My 1/4 teaspoon. Give that a nice sprinkle in there. And then a little bit of vanilla extract. So fun thing about a vanilla extract, first of all, it can be very expensive if you're buying the pure kind. Second of all, it can be very cheap if you're buying imitation kind. The imitation kind is not real. Like it's literally imitation. And so it's just a chemical composition that's made to taste like vanilla. So you can buy pure vanilla in a liquid form, or you can get vanilla in a vanilla bean. Now, if you're using a vanilla bean, it's going to be very expensive, but what you do is you split the pod and you just scrape the seeds out and you can use those. So this is nice to use like on a higher end dessert or something if you want to be really fancy. You can typically buy them in the spice department at your grocery store, but I do recommend using the purest form of vanilla that you can in order to ensure that you are getting the healthiest version. So I'm using a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. It smells so good. Love the smell of vanilla. And then a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. So back into my salt and back into my 1/4 teaspoon. Sprinkle that around. And we're going to make some noise. All right. Sure that's on there. My lid. Pop that on. Lock and load. Okay. So it's going to take a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on high and let it pulse for a bit. And then I'm going to stop and give it a little scrape. And then I'm going to just keep doing that until it gets into this like crumbly mixture. So here we go. Okay, so it's still pretty chunky. You can see that. I still need to do it a little bit more. Give it a little bit of a scrape just to make sure that things are not sticking. Moving them around. More noise. I don't know if you could hear that, but actually as they're breaking up, the sound of the grinding changes. So I want to leave this in its form. Let's see if I can show you the form that it's in. It's a little bit crumbly, but I want to have those chunks in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer this to a bowl so that I can handle it. Take my blade out and just put all of the nuts into there. Take my rings off because it's going to get gooey. And I just want to get my hands in here and start mixing it all together. So the dates are going to make it, like you can see that the dates are starting to make it clump. I want to try to get as much as I can into that clump. Sort of pick up the stuff on the bottom because I don't want to waste food. Nuts can be a little bit expensive, so I want to try to make sure that I don't leave any behind. And then what I'm going to do is get out. I didn't get out a container. Let's get out. Just a little pie plate here. What you can do is have parchment paper handy and put them on parchment paper. And I'm just going to break off a chunk and just squish it in my hands until I can feel that it's starting to stick together. Give it a little bit of a roll. Put it there. And just going along, just gathering up as much of the crumble from the bottom as possible, like I said, so that I'm not wasting it. The recipe says that you're going to get about 12 servings out of it. I like to be generous with the size of my snacks. So we'll probably not get 12. The last time I made these, I got 8, I think, out of it. So just squishing them together. What we're going to end up doing is putting them into the fridge so that they can just sort of solidify a little bit. That's going to help to keep them together. And then, like I said, you can put them in your freezer. This is a great one to make with kids, if you have kids or grandkids, because they like to get their hands messy. And you can show them how to make a raw food. Really, this is a raw food. We're not cooking it. And that can be super healthy for you. It's a great way to get things into their little bodies or into your body that you may not normally eat, that you might think, I would never have dates. But once you put them into these delicious energy balls, you'll never turn back. And like I said, there's a whole bunch of different types that you can make. This is just a fan favorite at my house. Okay. And let's talk about dates for a second here. Dates are an antioxidant and they contain lots of minerals and vitamins that help to support your brain, help to support digestion, heart health, protect against disease. These are the things that we want to hear. These are the things that we want to be doing. So that's the dates. We talked about almonds already, magnesium, vitamin E, fiber, calcium, phosphorus, good for your bones, help to curb blood sugar spikes after meals, which is really amazing if you have diabetes. It's a nice little, almonds can help, just a couple of almonds after your meal can help to get your blood sugar under control because your pancreas is kicking out insulin to help support the energy in your body and the carrying of the glucose that you're producing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we're going to get 7 this time. I was a little bit generous in the size of them. So again, just squishing them around, getting them nice and tight. The cashews are rich in fiber and protein, which is amazing because we want to have that protein when we're having plant-based foods, and healthy fats. Ginger is good for tummy troubles and nausea. So if you have raw ginger in your house, which we always have raw ginger in our house, ginger back here, some raw ginger. You can break off a chunk of that and steep it in tea. You can use fresh ginger in stir fries, slice it up into little chunks and saute it. It makes a delicious addition to a stir fry. And then, of course, ground ginger in some of your savory dishes, savory desserts. Got almost all of the nuts at the bottom of this bowl, so we're not wasting a whole lot. And then I talked about vanilla in terms of real versus synthetic. It's an antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. I told you we'd be hearing that a lot. And it's also neuroprotective, so good for your brain health. Antifungal, antibacterial, gives a boost to antibiotics, and is good for wound healing. So there we have it. We got 7 energy balls out of this recipe. Okay. Move that back over here. Get our space back. Hands a wipe. So this is very, very gooey, but so good. So the last thing that we're going to make, I feel like we're flying along here. We're doing really well for time, actually, is the overnight oats. Overnight oats are one of my favorites to make because they're so easy and they're so available in the morning when you get up and you're like, I don't know what I want for breakfast, but I know I need to eat. My ring's back on. So the overnight oats are really, really easy and literally will take 5 minutes of your life. They're highly endorse making them for your breakfast. Before we get into the oats themselves, I want to show you this. So I talked earlier about making your own milk, and you can make your own nut-based milks, oat-based milks, hemp-based milks by having one of these. This is called a nut milk bag. What you do is you get a high-speed blender and you put so for me, for example, I like to have oat milk, and also oat milk is cheaper to make than almond milk. Almonds are very expensive. So I want to use oats to make oat milk. So I take 1 cup of oats and put it in the bottom of my blender and 4 cups of water. You can put a pitted date in there if you want to add a little bit of sweetener. You can add a little bit of maple syrup. You can sort of play with it. But these dates are not coming off of my hands. But when you're making your own milk with oats, it's like exponentially cheaper than buying it at the grocery store. And the only ingredients are oats and water and whatever else you choose to put in it. It's the same with almonds, the same with hemp seeds, cashews. You can make your own nut-based milk, but this is the ticket. So you put the ingredients in the blender, whiz it all up, and then you pour the liquid into the bag. And what the bag is going to do is always have it over a container so the milk doesn't go everywhere. May have made that mistake before. You want to make sure that the liquid is going into the container. This catches all of the fiber. Once you have the liquid in there, you basically just keep squeezing it until it's like the bag is dry fiber in it. And then the fiber that's in here, what you can do is get a cookie sheet, put some parchment paper on it, crumble it all up, lay it out on the cookie sheet, and you can essentially roast it. And what that's going to do is make a crumble that you can put on top of salads, or you can turn it into a flour by really crumbling it up finely, and you can use it as a flour. So you don't have to throw the fiber out, because you might be thinking, well, that's really wasteful, but you don't have to waste the fiber. Or you can take the fiber out and turn it into your garden and use it as compost, essentially. But this, you can use cheesecloth. A tea towel won't work as well. Cheesecloth is a little more porous, and this is nice and porous. And you can find this at a health food store or probably on Amazon. You can get it there. Alrighty. We are doing so well for time. This is amazing. Let's get these oats made. So I've already pre-measured my 1.5 cups of oats. So when people talk about oats, they get a little bit concerned sometimes about gluten-free. And the advertisers are really good at saying oats are made in a gluten-free facility. So there's a reason for that. First of all, oats are gluten-free. Oats don't have gluten in them. The only way that oats are going to have gluten in them is if they're made in a facility where other gluten is available, like other flours. And so if you are gluten aware, oats are already gluten-free. If you are gluten sensitive or allergic or celiac, you want to be buying oats that say they're made in a gluten-free facility. That's really important. But no, oats, just know, oats are actually already gluten-free. So we have our oats, and we're going to come back to our unsweetened milk. So give that a shake. And that's something actually I didn't mention. When you make your own milk, I store mine in a mason jar. Like usually I'll put it in a mason jar that's about this big and put it in my fridge. But what happens is if you don't drink it right away, first of all, you need to drink it within about 3 days. So just plan ahead how much you are going to use. 4 cups of water will make just a little under 4 cups of milk because it's absorbed into the fibers. But what you'll find when you open up your fridge and you go to grab your milk is that it's separated. So there's like the fibery stuff on the bottom and the milky, watery stuff on the top. All you have to do is give it a shake. The difference between the container stuff and the stuff you're going to make is that this goes through a processor that spins it, and that keeps it from separating. The other thing is, again, this is going to have additives, preservatives, gums in it in order to keep it shelf stable. So I'm going to do my 1.5 cups of milk. So there's my one. I'm going to eyeball this because actually, if I go farther down the recipe, it asks for half a cup of water. I like mine nice and creamy, so I'm just going to do a full 2 cups of milk instead of 1.5 cups, and then 1/2 cup of water. But that's totally a personal choice. Your milk will definitely go a lot farther if you don't use all of it in your overnight oats. Put that over there. And get myself, I just need a regular size spoon. And I'm going to give that a stir. Just mix that in. So it seems really watery right now, and that's because the oats haven't started to absorb anything yet. And that's why they're called overnight oats. So the oats are raw, they're not cooked, but they're going to absorb the milk and turn it into essentially a thick, cold oatmeal. But it's really good, trust me. Next ingredient is chia seeds. Chia seeds are a staple in my diet. You can always put them in overnight oats. You can add them into other baking. You can throw them into smoothies. If you're going to be eating chia seeds, these ones are whole because they're going to get absorbed, and I'll talk about that in a second. But if you're going to be sprinkling them on top of a salad or something, you may want to grind them. That just makes them a little more bioavailable. It allows you to access the nutrients, and they break down and digest a little bit easier. But chia seeds are amazing. Now, they also don't mix in very well. They want to float, so they're a little bit of work to get them blended in. Over there, and I'm just going to see how they want to stay on the top. If they just really don't want to be blended in. So here's what's fun about chia seeds is they will absorb liquid, and they will end up puffing up and looking like a frog's egg, like a dark center and a little bit gelatinous around the outside. So we call them mucilaginous. And what that means is that they get puffed up and they get a little bit sticky. But what happens is when you eat them, they're like it's like a vacuum, like they drag things out of your digestive system. So they're going to grab onto things and pull them out of your digestive system. So they're like a nice little cleaner at the same time. They are going to help you with your digestive system, your elimination system, and they are a complete source of plant-based protein. So these are really important to have in your diet also if you're not eating meat. Just coming back to the vegan thing for a second, people who are eating vegan, just be very mindful of labeling on products. Doritos are vegan, Oreos are vegan, but they're not good for you. I'm not a big fan of the fake meats because there's just a conglomeration of a whole bunch of different things that aren't necessarily healthy for you. I would rather make my own homemade almond burgers or beet burgers. There are other options. And the other thing for people who choose to eat vegan is your vitamin B12. Like you need to be mindful of your B12 and maybe get that tested and just make sure that you're getting it from other sources because we have to have B12. And when we don't have B12, we can get sick. So just be mindful of that. I have to break out a different maple syrup, but this is another local maple syrup from a farm not far from where I live. It calls for 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. Again, I like to support local, but I also like to know where my food is coming from as much as possible. So 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. You can go lighter, you can go heavier. It's always good to follow the recipe the first time to see what you like and what you don't like. And then you can always modify the next time around. I like to write on my recipes and just remind myself that what I liked about that one was this, what I want to do is cut back on that. And then when I refer to them, I'll remember that, oh yeah, that was the thing that I made some changes to. We're coming back to our cinnamon. It's like in everything that we're making tonight. So a teaspoon of cinnamon. Sprinkle that in there. Again, helps to regulate your blood sugar. Just gives it a nice little flavor too. Like it's just, cinnamon's so good and it's, one of those fall foods. People really like the cinnamon and ginger and allspice and cloves in the fall months. But don't think that cinnamon's just a fall food. You can have it whenever you want. Mix that in there. And I already added more milk instead of water. Now the recipe calls for blueberries and slivered almonds, but what those are going to be are our toppers. So I'm not going to put everything into jars tonight. I'm just going to show you how to do it with one jar. You can leave it. Some people say leave it on the counter for 20 minutes to allow things to sort of puff up and start to mix together before you put them in containers. Some people say leave it all in a container and just put it in the fridge. I always just put mine into containers and have it in the fridge so that the next morning after I've made the oats, and you can see that if I hadn't been talking the whole time, this would have taken like maybe 5 minutes. That if they're already jarred, and I want to make sure I get some liquid in here, then I'm ready to go in the morning. I don't have to think about, oh yeah, I have to take that out and put it in a jar. I mean, I could just take it out and put it in a bowl. The jars just make it pretty and make it accessible to you. So again, just making sure I get some liquid in there, and the rest I will divvy up. So I'm leaving a little bit of space at the top. And what I can do is just take my fresh blueberries that I've already washed, always washing things first, and just put them right on the top. And it called for some slivered almonds also. You can put slivered almonds on there. And also, you can sprinkle some flaxseed in there. So you know what? I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle. I'm going to put a little bit of flaxseed actually in my whole mix. I'm just going to add like a teaspoon-ish to it. Sprinkle some on the top of there. Because flaxseed is really good for balancing your hormones. Flaxseed is really good for people who are perimenopausal. It can help to regulate your hormones, which, as we may or may not know, as you're going into menopause, your hormones get a little bit disrupted. They start to change. So flaxseed on everything is a great idea. So I've got some sprinkled on there. I've put some in here. You can sprinkle it on regular oats. You can add it to salad dressings. You can sprinkle it on top of a salad. It's magic. And there's my overnight oats. fun thing with overnight oats, I could layer these and put nut butter in there. So I could do like a little layer of the oats and then a layer of almond butter or cashew butter, sun butter, peanut butter. I like to buy organic peanut butter just because it's better. It's better for you. Peanuts are planted to soak up things out of the earth. So I want to be buying ones that are organically raised so that I know what's going into them. You can turn this brown by adding some raw cacao powder to it, make it a little bit fun. You can make peanut butter and jam overnight jars. You can make green tea matcha overnight jars. Like there's just so many things that you can do when you are playing with overnight oats. And then we just put that into the fridge and let it sit overnight. And tomorrow morning when I get up, I will have breakfast available to me. So that is all of our recipes. Let's just do a little revisit here, move some things out of the way. It's always so fun cooking and having like all of this stuff in the space, but it's also nice when it gets cleaned up and gets put away. So we ended with our overnight oats. Get that out of the way. We made ourselves some shawarma chicken, which is looking amazing back here and smelling amazing. We made our spice mix, and you can do this with other spice mixes also. You can find recipes for taco spice mix or Moroccan spice mix. We made our cinnamon ginger energy balls, so we have a nice snack ready to go. What I'm going to do with this is transfer it into a container. That if they all fit on one level, I'll just leave it like that. If they don't, like I mentioned, I'll put some parchment paper in between just to make sure they don't all stick together. And we made our muffins. So I'm going to show you how easy these pop out of the silicone tins. Like I'm literally just pushing up on the bottom and presto, I have a muffin. And I didn't even put any oil or butter or anything in my silicone muffin tin. And finally, my salad that's going to go with my chicken shawarma. So there's a lot of food that we've made in a little under 2 hours. But when you plan ahead, like you can see how many repeats I had in the ingredients. Cinnamon was used a lot, olive oil was used a lot, salt, pepper, milk, the oat milk, lemons, tomatoes, that parsley. I'm not using it all, so I can add it on top tomorrow fresh. I can use it in a different recipe. The almond flour that I bought to make the muffins, I now have that on hand, so I can make muffins again another time, or I can substitute almond flour for other flours. So you can see, like, when you start to think ahead about what you're making, like I didn't pick these recipes by accident. I planned to have recipes that used common ingredients, which minimizes my shopping, maximizes my pantry, minimizes waste in food. I want to make sure that my meal prepping is going to be cost effective, time effective. My recipes overlap each other, which allows, again, for minimal waste and maximum flavor. And so none of these really taste the same, but they all have similar ingredients in them, which makes meal prepping kind of fun also. And then, as I mentioned, you want to store your nuts and seeds in the fridge. You can make your own vegetable broth. You can make your own flours. You can make your own milk. If you want to be really fancy, you can grow your own herb garden in a window over the winter or outside in the summer. You can even do your own microgreens. There are so many things that you can do in your kitchen that don't have to take a lot of time, don't cost a lot of money. And when you start getting curious and playing, you might find that you actually really enjoy getting into your kitchen. And I did say earlier too that when you have kids or grandkids, you can start to get them involved in the process. Getting them involved in the process is going to teach them the value of food, nutritional components of foods, healthy eating, how to be comfortable in a kitchen, how to use their resources, and it's also quality time with the person that you love. Now, all we need is someone to clean up this mess. So that is everything that I wanted to make I'll just take a second, I think, and review some tools. So you want to have a good set of spatulas. You want to have that spice grinder that I was talking about, super helpful. A food processor that they'll have blades, so you could grate those carrots in here rather than doing it by hand. You want to have, I like to have stainless steel measuring tools because they're easy to wash. I could put them in the dishwasher if I want to. I have a cooling rack back here for my muffins, but I also have those cork pads that I was showing you that will allow me to put hot items on my kitchen counter so I don't damage it. A good set of oven mitts. These ones are nice and rubbery and they protect my hands. Tea towels, dishcloths, obviously. We want to have that little lemon juicer. It's going to make your life a little bit easier. Even little mixing bowls. So when you are prepping food, if you're doing a whole afternoon of meal prep, you can pre-measure things. Oh, that's something that I didn't talk about. This is really worth talking about. Sometimes when we go to the grocery store and we come home with vegetables, we put them into our fridge and we forget about them. And the next thing we know, we have like sad celery and not so great peppers anymore in our fridge. One of the things that is a great meal prep hack, and there are other meal prep hacks in the package that is included in your learning space that goes with this video, is to pre-chop your vegetables. So let's talk about that for a second. You could look ahead at the recipes that you're making, and maybe you're using red peppers in a couple of recipes. So one of the recipes might want you to cut them into squares, and another one might want you to cut them into strips. So you buy the quantity of peppers that you have, get out your cutting board and your nice sharp knife, and chop them into the shapes and the quantity that that recipe calls for, and then put them in a container and put them in the fridge. When it comes to finger foods, you're not, maybe you're like me, that if it's not done in the fridge, you're not going to reach for it. So pre-chopping your carrots into coins for salads, if that's what it calls for, into sticks for dipping in hummus or avocado, pre-cutting up your celery, like I said, pre-cutting up your peppers, pre-chopping vegetables that you reach for will make you reach for them more. Having dips already in your fridge, you can make your own hummus. It's a little bit of work, but a good food processor, some tahini, some chickpeas, some salt and pepper, some oil, you can make your own hummus. And so you can have your own dips and you can have pre-chopped vegetables ready to go so that you're eating healthy snacks. Having the energy balls handy will help you to reach for healthy snacks. Having the healthy muffins ready to go will help you have healthier breakfasts, and the overnight oats. So when you're thinking ahead, think of like, what would I eat? What do I want to eat? And how can I make it easier for me to get that food in my belly? Another thing that you can do, we're pre-cooking this chicken. You can pre-cook chicken breasts. You can, if you eat ground beef, you can pre-season and cook your ground beef and put it into baggies or containers in your fridge. So let's say you're having Taco Tuesday. On Sunday, pre-ground your beef, pre-cook your ground beef with the seasoning and have it in the fridge. So on Tuesday, when you get home, all you have to do is warm that back up again. Throw it in a saucepan on top of your stove, a frying pan, maybe add a little bit of moisture to it, like maybe some olive oil or something to just bring it, bring the moisture back into it a little bit, but just bring it back up to heat. Try to avoid the microwave if you can. There's some philosophies around microwaves. That's up to you to decide, but you can do things on your stovetop also quite easily. Greens, you want to make sure that you wash them and dry them and store them in containers that have air flow in them. That's going to help them to last longer. Potatoes and onions, don't store them in the same container. They don't like to be stored together. You're going to save your potatoes and save your onions by keeping them separate. So just so many different things that you can do. So I encourage you, after you've watched this video, to get out the recipes yourself and just start playing with them. and go into the package that talks about storage, talks about getting your pantry organized. That's a whole thing in itself, is going through and actually just having what you need. So you're not overwhelmed in your kitchen with all of these fancy things. You can just have the staples and then fill in the gaps as you need to with things like sumac powder, if that's what you need, or red onions, if that's not what you normally eat. You can go and get those things to supplement your pantry. Oh, yes. Also, I was going to say there's a hack sheet in there. I had to think for a second. What was that I was going to say? There's a hack sheet in there that's going to give you some tips on how to really help you think ahead in your kitchen to get things prepared ahead of time. So go into your learning space that you got with this video and take a look at those items and get curious about what else you can do to meal prep in your kitchen. So that is our workshop on mastering meal prep. The mastery will come from the practice. So don't be afraid to try it. Don't be afraid to experiment with different ways to do it. I've had a client in the past that she only wanted 2 hours of meal prep on Sundays. So when I would give her her recipes, I would also lay out a meal prep schedule for her that helped her to remember things like chop up all the peppers, chop up all of the onions. You can pre-chop your onions for the week and put them in a jar in your fridge. Like, she just wanted everything to happen within 2 hours. So that's how she made meal prep work for her. Other people like to do it maybe the night before, like remembering to take out their chicken and thaw it, or making their oats the night before, or slicing up the carrot sticks for kids' lunches, or even pre-packing like lunch boxes the night before. So you have to learn what your style is and what's going to work for you. But I promise you that once you get in the habit of meal prepping, even just making overnight oats and muffins ahead of time, it's going to make your life easier. It's going to save you money and it's going to save you time. And you're going to eat healthier, which is one of the big goals in all of this. Speaking of healthy eating, I would like to share with you that I have created a mini course that is the perfect add-on to this meal prep program. It is called Wellness Through Food, and it is a 6-module pre-recorded video course that goes a little bit deeper into nutrition and into what you need to know about food to ensure you're making healthy choices for yourself and your family. It is $47. It is yours when you buy it to have for as long as you want to access it. Go in and watch it over and over and over again. But it makes a nice little add-on to this program, because now that you've sort of experimented in the kitchen a little bit, this is the deeper understanding of the what and the why around food and how you can take your healthy eating to the next level. And I truly believe that when you watch those videos, when you come back and you do this again and again, you can transform your health and reclaim your life by saving time and money in less than 30 days. It just becomes a matter of getting in tune with your kitchen, getting comfortable in your kitchen, having recipes that you want to eat, that you want to try, that your family enjoys, and just being excited about cooking. So I hope you have enjoyed this class. I hope that you will look at Wellness Through Food as the next step in your healthy eating program. And I just want to thank you so much for being part of this opportunity for me to get in the kitchen and do some cooking for my own family that is going to help to carry us through the next week and beyond, because some of these things are going in the freezer. Thank you, everybody. I look forward to seeing you in other courses and other workshops down the road. Take care.